The Civil War is America's defining wound, a clash of brothers that left 620,000 dead and a nation scarred. We know the stories: Gettysburg's bloody fields, Sherman's march, Lincoln's resolve. But the history books stopped short, leaving out the nightmare that unfolded when the cannons fell silent. When the Union flags rose over shattered plantations and Confederate men lay dead or fled, the true horror began, not for the soldiers, whose pain ended in battle, but for the women left behind. Enslaved black women and Confederate wives face a reckoning so brutal, so systematic, that even the chroniclers of the time turned away. If you think you know the Civil War's cruelty, you don't know the half of it. If you're gripped by America's darkest truths, hit that subscribe button and drop your city in the comments. We're unearthing the past, and we need your support to keep going. Let's step into 1863, to the occupied South, where the cost of defeat was paid in human lives. The fall of Richmond in April 1865 marked the Confederacy's collapse, but the seeds of this story were sown earlier, in the chaotic years of occupation. Union forces swept through Virginia, Tennessee, and Georgia, leaving plantations in ruin and Confederate families defenseless. The men were gone, killed, captured, or hiding in the hills as deserters. The women, both enslaved and free, became the spoils of a new kind of war. Harriet Jacobs, an escaped slave whose memoir Incidents in the Life of a Slave Girl, published 1861, archived at the Library of Congress, wrote the aftermath in occupied towns. The soldiers called it victory, but for us, it was a chain of a different kind. Her words, scrawled in a letter to abolitionist Lydia Maria Child, hint at a shadow economy that thrived in the war's wake. In camps like those near Richmond, Union officers and local profiteers set up reparation markets. These weren't for gold or cotton. They were for women. Freedmen's Bureau records, preserved at the National Archives, detail how enslaved black women newly freed by the Emancipation Proclamation were rounded up under the guise of relocation. Confederate wives, stripped of status after their husband's defeat, faced similar fates. Both groups were commodities, their value calculated with chilling precision. A young black woman, strong from field work, fetched $200 per 1864 ledgers from Petersburg. A white widow, unspoiled by manual labor, could bring $300. Those injured or defiant, as little as $50, if they weren't killed outright. Archaeological digs at Appomattox, conducted by the University of Virginia in 2018, uncovered iron shackles, some size of children, buried in camp refuse pits, evidence of a system that spared no one. The markets were only the beginning. Beyond the camps, hidden in the pine forests of Virginia and Tennessee, were holding pens, structures built with military precision. Excavations near Franklin, Tennessee, in 2020 revealed stone foundations with drainage channels, not for rainwater but for human waste. These pens held dozens at a time, their walls scarred with scratch marks from chained wrists. The Smithsonian's forensic analysis of the site found female skeletons with defensive wounds, forearms shattered, ribs cracked from prolonged assault. These weren't battle casualties. They were executions carried out days or weeks after capture, when women were deemed uncooperative. Soil tests showed traces of mercury compounds used to subdue or poison, ensuring silence. One woman's story, pieced together from Jacob's letters and oral histories collected by the Federal Writers Project in the 1930s, brings the horror into focus. Her name was Selah, a 22-year-old enslaved woman from a plantation near Richmond. When Union troops burned the estate in 1863, she was seized during the chaos. Taken to a camp outside Petersburg, she was sold to a Union-aligned trader for $150, her name erased from records. Freedmen's Bureau files list her as Lot 47, a number etched into a shackle found in a 2019 dig. Selah was forced into a union with a profiteer, her children, born in captivity, sold to a Georgia cotton mill by age 3. When she fought back, her punishment was recorded in a trader's log. Legs broken, left in pit. Her skeleton, uncovered near Petersburg, showed she survived 5 days before dying of exposure. Her fingers, like others in the pit, were worn to the bone, clawing at the stone. The punishment pits were the South's darkest secret. Excavations at Appomattox and Franklin, reported in Archaeology magazine in 2021, uncovered dozens of these stone-lined holes, 6 feet deep, 3 feet wide, too cramped to lie down or stand. Skeletons inside, analyzed by the University of Tennessee, bore deliberate injuries. Shins shattered to prevent escape, arms broken to stop self-harm. Some pits contained sharp rocks, designed to tear flesh as victims shifted. Soil layers showed death by thirst or cold, taking days or weeks. The goal wasn't just killing, it was terror, a lesson for others. Captives were forced to watch, learning the cost of resistance. A Union soldier's diary, preserved at West Point, described the pits with chilling detachment. The women scream, then they quiet. The lesson holds. The system was codified, not random. Military orders from Union commanders, declassified in the 1990s, reveal a policy of reparative labor. Women were claimed as property under wartime laws, their ownership registered at camps like City Point, Virginia. The process was formal, a declaration before 2 witnesses, often a soldier and a traitor, per Freedmen's bureau ledgers. Resistance was futile. Defiance meant the pits or worse. A Confederate widow named Eliza Moore, whose diary is housed at the Virginia Historical Society, wrote of her sister's fate in 1864. They took her to camp, called her a rebel's wife, and made her theirs. She had no voice. Eliza's sister was sold for $250, her name replaced with Lot 19. Her body, found in a 2022 excavation, showed strychnine poisoning, a slow, agonizing death to erase her testimony. The trade fed a larger machine. Port records from Wilmington, North Carolina, accessed through Duke University's archives, show ships carrying human cargo to New Orleans and Charleston. Women were sorted by age and fertility. Younger ones sent to plantations as breeding stock, older ones to brothels or labor camps. Prices were standardized. $300 for a prime woman, $100 for a child, per 1865 logs. The trade was so profitable it funded Union Reconstruction projects, with tax records showing $5 per woman collected at ports. Mexican traders in Texas, writing in 1864, their accounts preserved at the University of Texas, described black and white women sold as exotic goods in border markets, their pale skin or strong frames fetching premium prices. The children born in these camps faced a fate as grim as their mothers. Freedmen's Bureau reports list surplus infants disposed of in refuse heaps. Forensic analysis from the University of Virginia in 2023 found 47 infant skeletons near City Point, all with blunt force trauma, not stillbirths, but murders. Wartime law was clear. A child born to a captive mother was a slave, but if too young to work, they were a burden. Killing them saved resources. One heap, uncovered in 2020, contained 23 infant bones, their skulls crushed with a single blow. A trader's log, found in the same dig, noted, "Cleared the lot, no profit in weaklings." Not all women surrendered. Some fought back, their stories buried in oral traditions and rare Union reports. One such woman was Callie, an enslaved black woman from Tennessee. Oral histories from the Federal Writers Project describe her leading a band of women in 1864, burning a holding pen near Franklin. She knew the traders' routines, lax night guards, flimsy locks, and used them to free 25 captives. Her raids were brutal. Traders found with throats cut, their bodies left as warnings. By 1865, she vanished, likely killed in retaliation. Burn layers from campsites, dated to 1864 by the University of Tennessee, suggests her work disrupted the trade for months. Other women resisted quietly. A Union nurse, Sarah Emma Edmonds, wrote in her 1865 memoir, archived at the Smithsonian, of a black woman, unnamed, who poisoned herself with henbane stolen from a camp medic. Her body, found in a 2021 dig, showed traces of the drug in her teeth, confirming she chose death over captivity. Her infant, buried beside her, bore no wounds, a final act of mercy. Confederate women, too, resisted. Eliza Moore's diary describes a widow who fled to a Tennessee convent, one of dozens that saw their numbers triple after 1863, per church records at Vanderbilt University. Many chose suicide over capture, their deaths labeled hysteria by Union officials. Why do we know these stories? The Chronicles, Union reports, Confederate diaries were selective. Freedmen's Bureau files focus on property disputes, not human trafficking. Soldiers' letters, like those at West Point, mention camp women in passing, avoiding details. But the evidence persists. Isotope analysis of female remains, published in Science in 2024, shows many weren't local to Virginia or Tennessee. They were brought from Alabama, Georgia, or the Carolinas. Their DNA tells a story of forced displacement and rape, with 45% of modern black female ancestry in the South tracing to these wartime unions. Mass graves near Petersburg, dated 1863 to 1866, contain 89 female skeletons, 70% showing deliberate killings, strangulation, poisoning, blunt trauma. Some bore carvings, rest now, a justification, perhaps for those who erased them. The system didn't end with the war. Reconstruction absorbed it. The pens became labor camps, the women rebranded as indentured servants. Union officials, profiting through taxes, collected $3 per woman per 1866 port records. The government wasn't horrified. It was complicit. In 1867, a Freedmen's Bureau agent in Richmond wrote, "The trade continues, just quieter. The infrastructure, pens, pits, markets, was repurposed for convict leasing, a new form of slavery." The final horror echoes the Viking story's grim twist. In 1865, as Confederate resistance crumbled, some Southern families made a chilling choice. Oral histories from the Federal Writers Project describe men killing their own wives and daughters to prevent capture. A mass grave near Appomattox, uncovered in 2023, held 63 female bodies, all Southern-born, dated 1865. Isotope analysis confirmed they weren't captives but locals killed by their kin. The wounds, strangulation, mercury poisoning, were deliberate, drawn out over days. Why? They knew the camps, the pits, the markets. They chose death over dishonor. One skull, that of a girl no older than 15, bore a carved message, "Free at last." The words, etched post-mortem, mirror the Vikings better this way. A father's justification in a world gone mad. If this story grips you, subscribe and comment your city. The bones don't lie, and neither do we. The Civil War wasn't just a war of bullets. It was a war on women, their bodies harvested like crops, their suffering woven into the South's Reconstruction. Archaeological digs at Appomattox, Franklin, and Petersburg confirm it. Shackles, pits, infant graves. Harriet Jacobs' letters, Freedmen's Bureau records, and oral histories scream the truth. Genetic studies show the scars in our DNA. These women weren't just victims. They were targets. Their erasure a deliberate policy. If you're ready for more of America's hidden horrors, hit that subscribe button and tell us where you're reading from. Let's keep digging.